Hello there. Welcome to Soothing Pod's Sleep Stories. I am Joe. Tonight, I will be your guide on a magical journey to a fairy tale world. And I will tell you a story about a frog who claimed to be a real prince. But before we listen to this bedtime story, let's take a moment to relax. Make yourself comfortable in your bed. Cover yourself with a blanket if you are cold, and if you sleep with your cuddly toy, make sure that it's with you as well. Now, close your eyes and pay attention to how you are breathing. Breathe in through your nose and breathe out through your mouth. Breathe in, breathe out. You now feel very relaxed in bed, and you are ready to listen to this wonderful story. Our story begins once upon a time. A long time ago, there lived a king whose daughters were all lovely. But of all his daughters, his youngest was the most beautiful of all. She was so beautiful that even the sun, who had seen many charming maidens, was very happy every time she came out into the sunshine. Near the king's castle was a dark and scary forest, and in the middle of the woods stood an ancient lime tree with branches that spread out like a gigantic canopy. And underneath the tree bubbled a deep, cool, clear spring. This place was the youngest princess's favorite place, and she often came here to play, especially on hot days. The princess was very spoiled and had many toys that were fit for a princess, all made by the most skilled toy makers in the kingdom. She had dozens upon dozens of dolls with porcelain faces dressed in the most beautiful gowns made with the finest fabric. Dolls' houses in all shapes and sizes, complete with the most intricate tiny furniture, as well as dozens of other strange yet wonderful toys. But of all of these, her favorite toy to play with was a golden ball that was given to her by the king. The golden ball was smooth and shiny and fitted perfectly on her hand like a glove, and so she often played with it when she was bored. She loved the way it sparkled in the sun when she threw it up in the air and caught it. Her favorite place to play with the ball was underneath the old lime tree. One especially hot day, the princess was playing underneath the tree with her golden ball. She was having a great time tossing her golden ball up and catching it. But at one time, she threw it higher than usual, and she wasn't able to catch it. The ball fell to the ground with a soft thud and rolled directly to the spring. It made a soft splash as it hit the water, and it sank rapidly into the crystal clear water until she could no longer see it. "My golden ball!" the princess exclaimed as she quickly ran to the edge of the spring. But it was too late. The ball was gone. The princess couldn't believe that she lost her favorite ball. Her knees felt weak, so she sat down on the green grass near the spring, put her head in her arms, and cried as if her heart would break. Then, out of nowhere, she heard a voice. "What's the matter, Princess? Why are you crying so loud that it can wake even the sleeping trolls?" The princess stopped sobbing long enough to curiously look around to see who the voice belonged to. She looked up from where she was sitting, but strangely, nobody was there. She looked left, she looked right, but still she saw no one. Where could that voice be coming from? She thought to herself. "What's the matter, Princess? Why are you crying?" the voice said again. Slowly, the princess looked down at her feet, and there she saw a tiny, green, slimy frog. "A talking frog?" she exclaimed to herself. She didn't know if she could tell the frog what had happened, but she thought that it couldn't hurt to. After all, he was just a frog. "My favorite golden ball fell into the spring, and the water is so deep that I can't get it. I'll never be happy again without my ball," the princess said, as tears started to roll down her cheeks again. "I can help you get your ball back. But what would you give me in return?" the frog said to the princess as he hopped to the edge of the pond. "You can have anything you want. Beautiful clothes, gold, emeralds, diamonds. You name it, you can have it," the princess said. "I have no use for those, for I am just a frog. What I want is a promise that you will be my friend, and that you will let me eat from your plate, and that you will let me sleep on your pillow at night," the frog said. What a silly little frog, the princess thought to herself. But she was so desperate to have her ball back that at this point she would have agreed to anything. "Very well, frog," she said in her best royal voice. "You have my promise. Now go fetch my golden ball." The frog, satisfied with her promise, dove into the cold spring water. The princess knelt on the grass at the edge of the spring and waited impatiently for the frog to come up with her favorite ball. After a few agonizing minutes that felt like forever, the frog came up from the water with the golden ball in his hands. The princess, who was greatly overjoyed, grabbed the golden ball from the frog and ran towards the palace, her promise to the frog now forgotten. That night, at the castle dinner, when she, her father, and her sisters were dining on golden dishes, they heard something coming up the marble staircase. It was making a wet, splashy sound. The sound stopped at the door of the dining hall, and a familiar voice called out from outside. "Open the door, the king's youngest princess. It is I, the one you made a promise to." The princess then remembered the promise to the frog, and her face turned pale. That silly frog! Who would have thought that he would take such a promise so seriously? The king, now curious, asked the princess to whom and what promise she made. The princess, in a small voice, told the king everything. How a frog helped her get back the golden ball, and how she made a promise to let it eat from her golden plate and sleep on her pillow at night. The old king was silent for a minute, and then he said, "A princess should always keep her word. Open the door and do as you promised to that frog." The princess wanted to protest, but she knew that her father would hear nothing of it. So she slowly walked to the door and gingerly opened it. The frog then hopped in and went directly to the table. "Now, my dear princess, carry me up on your hands and put me next to your golden plate so that I can share your dinner." The princess didn't want to do it. She really didn't want to touch a cold and slimy frog. But then she looked up and saw her father's unsmiling face looking directly at her. She knew that there was no getting out of this situation. She knelt and opened her palm so that the frog could hop onto it. She walked to the dining table, her arms outstretched as far as they would go so that she would not have to smell the slimy frog. The frog then happily ate from her plate, and the princess spent the rest of the dinner just looking at the green frog as it ate her food. She had lost her appetite. After dinner, the frog told the princess, "I really enjoyed your dinner. Now it's time for you to take me to your bed so that I can sleep on your pillow." The princess ran to her father and wailed, "Please, father, don't let me do it. I want to sleep by myself in my nice, clean, and comfortable bed." Her father replied in a stern but gentle voice, "My princess, that frog helped you in your time of need. In return, you made a promise. A promise should never be broken." The princess cried, but her tears didn't deter the king from making her keep her promise. She grudgingly walked to her room and proceeded to get ready for bed. When she was in her pajamas and tucked comfortably in her bed, the frog was nowhere to be seen. "Perhaps he is gone," she thought to herself, relieved. But just as she was about to lie down on her pillow, she heard a voice. "Lift me up so I can lie on your pillow," the frog told the princess. The princess could do nothing, but just as he said. Otherwise, she knew that the horrid frog would tell her father, and that he would make her do it anyway. She gingerly picked up the frog's front hands using only her thumb and forefinger and threw him onto her pillow. She then climbed into her bed and tried to sleep at the very edge of her bed, as far as possible from the frog. She curled into a ball and shut her eyes. The sooner she slept, the sooner it would be morning. The next morning, when she woke up, the frog was gone, and in his place, standing at the edge of her bed, was a handsome young man with brown hair and kind hazel green eyes. "Who are you?" the princess said, amazed. She was ready to call for the palace guards when the young man spoke. "Don't be afraid, dear princess. It is I, the frog. I was cursed by an ugly witch to be a frog, and I was stuck in the spring underneath the lime tree unless a princess would allow me to eat from her plate and sleep in her bed. Thank you for keeping your promise." Just then, a carriage pulled by 8 magnificent white horses with white ostrich feathers on their heads, arrived in front of the castle doors. Behind the carriage was the young prince's faithful servant, who was looking for him in every corner of the kingdom for years. The handsome prince invited the princess to come and visit his kingdom. The old king was delighted and gave the princess his permission to do so. It wasn't long before the prince and princess fell in love with each other, and in no time they got married and lived happily ever after. So, you see, good things come from keeping your promises. Thank you for listening to this story. I wish you all the best sweet dreams tonight, and I'll be with you tomorrow for another story on Soothing Pod.